in healthy and productive ways. All of you have come here to UUFNN to find community, to find solace, to find connection on Zoom or in person as circumstances allow. All are welcome here. Today we will be fed, we will be renewed, we will be uplifted and refocused to meet the daily challenges to our world and our personal lives. And we will do this through the messages, the music, the perspectives, the awareness of life in all its spiritual dimensions. Despite difficulties that abound around us in politics, health, economics, and personal issues, we are still here, and we are still growing in love, faith, justice, and joy. I'd like to switch gears just a little bit now and move into announcements. I'd like to remind you that at the back we have a little table for joys and concerns and sorrows. And we would ask you to, when we're greeting each other, maybe make your way back there if there's something you would like publicly announced, whether it's a birth, a graduation, a marriage, some celebration, or if there's a concern. And so we would ask you to put that get that up here so we can announce it to the congregation. From Brad Hatchton, he has announcement regarding the Faith in Action Nevada team at UUFNN is partnering with Washoe County to host a listening session regarding the first ever Washoe County Community Climate Action Plan at UUFNN on Sunday, that's next Sunday, July 21st at 12 to 1 p.m. in the Star King Room. This is an opportunity to share your thoughts and feedback on what sustainable programs you'd like to see take place in Washoe County and how we can prioritize marginalized communities most affected by the climate crisis. Please RSVP Brad or see him after the service so we know how many people to anticipate. And of course, Brad is here, so stand, Brad. Yay! That's Mr. Climate Change himself. Okay. Anyway, now it's time for us to greet each other, which is appropriate for you. Those of you who are on Zoom, you can put remarks in the chat room. You can wave or whatever, but we would ask you here presently to just what is appropriate for you, a fist bump, whatever, handshake. Like to start that, and the singing bell will end that. All right, please stand and greet each other.
Welcome to a day of hope and promise, to a place of peace and comfort, to a journey toward truth and justice, to a community of love and courage that will help us along the way. I'm Gaia Brown. I'm your worship leader this morning, and Brad Acton is going to come up and light our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. And now, our opening hymn, if you would please rise in body or spirit and sing number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. Now, this is a story about Jesse and Jesse's genes. When Jesse was in first grade, something remarkable happened. Jesse grew and grew and grew till Jesse was almost the size of a fourth grader. My goodness. So Jesse's mom, of course, had to go out and get Jesse new clothes. And one of the things that the mom bought was a pair of jeans. Now, a lot of kids like to wear sweatpants, but Jesse liked a little style. So these jeans, they had pockets in all the right places. They had kind of rivets on them, all right? These rivets, decorative, looking great, beautiful shade of blue. And every time mom washed them, they got softer and softer. So they were actually as comfortable as wearing sweatpants. Well, Jesse loved those jeans, and they wore them, not every day, but maybe 2 or 3 times a week, all the way through second grade, into third grade, So throughout third grade, Jesse had grown a lot in first grade very quickly, but now Jesse was growing slowly, and the jeans, Mom had to move a button at one point and do a little mending, and honestly, by the end of third grade, the jeans were kind of short. But it was the end of third grade, it was summer. Who wears jeans when it's so hot? So it was fourth grade, maybe October or so of fourth grade, that Jesse reached into their dresser drawer and pulled out an unusual pair of jeans, not the jeans that Jesse loved. This was a new pair of jeans. Jesse looked at them. They didn't have very many pockets, and instead of the rivets, there was this kind of weird embroidery. The shade of blue was all wrong, and they were stiff and scratchy. So Jesse did what I suppose I would have done as a fourth grader in such a situation. Jesse stood in their bedroom and yelled, "Mom! My jeans! What happened to my jeans?" And Mom miraculously appeared in the door and said, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but you outgrew those jeans. You had them for a long time. They really didn't fit you anymore. So I gave them away and bought you a new pair. They're really quite the same. They'll be fine." Jesse said, "They will not be fine. I hate them. I will never wear them, and you have ruined my whole life." And Jesse pulled on a pair of sweats and rushed off to school. And, oh my goodness, that's the end of the story. I don't like the end of that story. I mean, Jesse's unhappy, Mom's probably unhappy, and the poor teacher's going to be dealing with this unhappy kid all day. Can you think of how the story could have been a little different so we could have had a different ending? All right, what do you think could have happened? The mom could have done what? The mom could have included Jesse in this change. Okay, she could have done something like that. Like people take old t-shirts and they make pillows and all. Good idea. Okay, so there are things that could have been done a little differently and we would have had a happier ending. And we'll get a little more into this as we go on. But right now, Bob Alto has something to read to us.
After such an exciting story, this is not so exciting, but it is important, and that is the bylaws and rules of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Now, this tradition draws from many sources. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. I'd like to repeat that. Words and deeds of prophetic people who challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. Humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guide of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. Spirit teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. Just pay attention to that for one brief moment. Religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising one another our mutual trust and support. So the circle goes round, mutual trust and support. Inclusion. Systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcome all persons and commit to restructuring congregational and associational life in ways that empower and enhance everyone's participation. Freedom of belief. Nothing herein shall be deemed to infringe upon the individual freedom of belief which is inherent in the Universalist and Unitarian heritages, or to conflict with any statement of purpose, covenant, or bond of union used by any congregation unless such is used as a creedal test. And so be it. Now I'd like to switch gears. I hope you can maybe just take the words of that doctrine, that creed, that association principles, and just realize why we're here. That we are a community, that we are welcome to all, that we draw on many, many resources to make our faith a living thing. Now I'd like to switch gears and go into meditation and into our joys and sorrows. So if you'd like to just kind of sit up, find a comfortable place where you can breathe in and breathe out. We'd like to enter into joys, into sorrows, into a moment of meditation. We'd like to recognize Nancy Ann, leader's partner of 20 years, Mark Williams, passed this week after a long illness, during which she was his caretaker. Our love and thoughts are with Nancy Ann and family. From Bill and Cindy Fogel, recognizing Towns Davis, their wonderful grandson, who celebrated his second birthday yesterday, a joyous occasion. We'd like to also recognize the celebration of life for Chris Nelson, who was a longtime choir director of UFFNN. And next Sunday, July 21st, there will be his service at the Mountain View Mortuary at 11 a.m. So you'll have to make a decision regarding whether you're here or there to honor again Chris Nelson. Now's the time to just kind of center your life and think maybe of your joys and your sorrows. Let's join together in prayer and meditation. We only have to turn on the TV to note the difficulties in our world: fires, floods, earthquakes, war, lives lost, landscapes changed, and even the political violence that took place yesterday. But we rejoice with the blessings of support and survival, where neighbors help neighbors, where we as a UU community give service and love. We are a covenant people. Now, those on Zoom can share their joys and sorrows in the chat box if you so choose. Let's just take a moment and reflect on our world beyond and within ourselves. And so, may it be. Namaste. Amen.
Although I was actually there when it happened, at the UUA General Assembly in Atlanta in 1986. I'm talking about the vote establishing the 7 principles just read by Bob. I have to admit, I did not realize then, or at least I don't recall being aware, that what those are really are kind of administrative. For us, they are, let me ask, because there's a lot of new people. When I say 7 principles, how many people know what I'm talking about? Okay. For people who don't know, I'm going to encourage you after the service to find some literature out in the great room or outside of the great room to learn more about them. Anyhow, when these values, the principles were voted on, what we were voting on was part of our bylaws, because in the state of Massachusetts, to be incorporated, a nonprofit has to, or church, has to say what their purposes are, what their money's going to be used for. So what we said was, well, here are all the things that we think are of value, and this is what our fiduciary responsibility is, to make these things happen and to help it make these things happen in congregations throughout the country. So the very first bylaw such as that was adopted in 1961 during the merger of the Unitarians and the Universalists. And the idea was that the bylaws would be revisited about every 15 years or so. But it took almost 25 years for the first revision to occur, and that was spurred by women. Now, this is the early 80s initially. Women going, mankind, where are we in this whole business? Women weren't there. So that was the big move at that point, to have new bylaws. And that's how we got the principles that we currently have. 20 years later, in 2006, UUA attempted, because they were supposed to keep revisiting these, they attempted another revision, but you know, it's like Jesse and the jeans. We were just too comfortable with what we had to be wanting something new. During that time, in the 20-aughts, the UUA was in the process of consolidating 19 districts into 5 regions. And a number of those districts were essentially vestiges of the individual organizations of Unitarian and Universalist movements before we merged to become UUs. So the UUA moved kind of cautiously to not hurt feelings and step on people's toes. So it took till about 2017 that the UUA had arrived at its goal of 5 regions, 4 of which were already headed by leads. Leads is the egalitarian term for the person in charge. In my life, we used to call it an executive. Now, in 2017, as UUA sought to hire for the 5th region, a Latina religious educator named Cristina Rivera, who was then serving as the Director of Administration and Finance at a large congregation in Charlottesville, Virginia, she decided to throw her hat into the ring for this position. She was at that time a member of the UUA Board of Trustees, where she'd been the financial secretary and now was secretary of the association. All unpaid volunteer work. Thank you for your service. So she applies, the interview process is going very well, and eventually Christina is told she was qualified to step right into that position as lead of the region, but there was another qualified candidate, and the UUA would have to take a little bit of time to decide who would be the best fit for the job. And it turned out she was not the best fit. A few weeks later, at a meeting of many folks at the top of the UUA, the ones running it, UUA trustee Cristina Rivera rose with a question. Why, she wondered, were all 5 of the regional leads white male ministers? Well, the meeting agenda was suddenly suspended. For all that Unitarian Universalists claim to be in the forefront of inclusion and equality, we set the standards, right? For all the talk in the bylaws of replacing systems of power and oppression, the UUA was shown as an institution that was sexist, racist, and elitist. UUA President Peter Morales, himself a Latino, resigned immediately with only 10 weeks left in the second term of the presidency. And that was followed by the resignation of a bunch of other white male ministers who'd been in charge of staffing the regions. For the duration of Morales' term, a triumvirate was appointed, all of them Black. Reverend Bill Sinkford, who had been Morales' predecessor, Reverend Sophia Betancourt, who is our current president, and Dr. Leon Spencer, a respected academic and layperson who had done decades of anti-racism work with the UUA, obviously with limited success. The UUA now found itself in a time of ethical, moral, and spiritual crisis. At our little UU outpost here in Reno, we didn't feel that, but I assure you, in the greater world of UU-dom, it was a seismic event. So, along with other remedies, the UUA appointed an Article II study commission, something that had been soundly avoided. Yes, there'd been some mending and amending of the principles, just as there had been with Jesse's genes, like we added a sixth source for earth-centered religions, and also another source, which was listening to the words and deeds of prophetic men and women. That became the words and deeds of prophetic people. So we updated some language. There also had been a movement, not in the UUA, but in separate congregations, a lot of congregations, for an eighth principle that would specifically call out racism and other systems of oppression. While many congregations actually adopted that principle, we didn't even talk about it here, frankly. We did have other kinds of experiences for learning about racism, but not the eighth principle. The study commission had a formidable task because, in general, people love the principles. On the plus side, they're truly poetic. I can remember how workshops at the 1996 GA wordsmithed each of them down to the last comma. They aren't a set of beliefs, and they aren't even really aimed at us as individuals. They're a covenant of how Unitarian Universalist congregations will be in relationship with each other. But they give us a simple way to explain what our complex religion is all about. There's even a children's version that preschoolers can recite. But while we were affirming those principles, there was nothing in them that called us to be accountable, no action plan. And the world has not stood still for all these decades. It was perhaps time for a new generation to have the thrill that people like I had when in 1986 at the General Assembly in Atlanta, about 3,000 of us raised our affirmative cards and were counted, voting yes for the principles. It wasn't unanimous, but it was overwhelmingly approved. Now, in bringing change, the UUA did not make the same mistake as Jesse's mother. No, in fact, one thing they did, and if you got enough kids in the congregation, you always get a good answer. Quentin's answer was great. One thing that they actually did do was kind of cut up the principles and intersperse them so they got reused, just as if we'd made a scarf out of them or a t-shirt or something. And also, the democratic process is who we are. So the Article 2 Study Commission invited everyone, at least everyone who was paying attention, to chime in. The commission itself had just 5 members, including 1 minister and 4 lay people, including 4 who identify as female and 1 identifying as male, including 3 adults and 2 youth, a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, including 1 person who identifies as being lesbian and 1 who identifies as having disabilities, 5 members total. But that small circle drew an ever-widening circle of thousands of individuals and hundreds of congregations who wanted to have input into the new Article 2. By General Assembly last year, there was a draft which GA attendees, that's people from nearly every UU congregation, they discussed, massaged, discussed, amended, wordsmithed, discussed, voted, discussed, to send this on to this year's General Assembly. By the way, you do know the joke, don't you, about Unitarians? Or maybe it's actually just the truth. Given a choice between going to heaven or a discussion about heaven, Unitarian will always take the discussion. So the same process occurred at this year's General Assembly last month, and the vote was about 80% pro. And here we are. The 7 principles have been supplanted by a single elegant flower. And that takes a lot of explaining. Thank you, choir, for that introduction to love. While the 7 principles have numbers for referral, they do not represent a hierarchy of values. But in the new article, we are told that the value central to all other values is love. You might recall a quote from Christian scriptures, so faith, hope, love abide, and the greatest of these is love. And in our own mission statement, we call to grow for ourselves to grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. You might be thinking about what value you might put in the center if it wouldn't be love. But right now, we are going to focus on what the UUA means with love, and we're going to have, as we go through these values, we're going to have a slide up on there on the screen. We are going to read the slide together, like a choral reading, okay? And let me just say, I'm asking you for this time, I know you haven't seen this before, but just read it. I know with hymns, when you get a new hymn, everybody's trying to rush ahead to see what the words are to see if they agree with them before they sing them. But we're just reading this to kind of get a little familiar with it. So we're going to start by reading love. Read with me. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant, congregation to congregation, and through our association, to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is a power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual of love. So, what strikes me most about this statement is that it calls us to accountability, which is what the prior Article 2 did not do. So everybody, and that includes the corporate UUA, we're all accountable for working on these values. No more just lip service while, and I'm going to knock the UUA in Boston a little bit, the elite Boston Brahmins, they have a hard time letting go of that hundreds of years of heritage. Starting in January, we will look at the 6 surrounding values, one each month between January and June. So we're not going to go into any depth here looking at the values, but we'll kind of get an introduction that will allow us to sleep on it, mull it over, think about it. The new lead, remember that's executive, of our Pacific Western region is a Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf. Some of you who were here for Neil Anderson's ordination almost 16 years ago now might remember meeting Sunshine, who was a seminary colleague of Neil's. So our new lead, Sunshine, wrote, "I know that many are heartbroken by this change, and others are excited. I personally will continue to embrace both the principles and the purposes and the new Article 2 values. We each will do what is meaningful for us. It is one of the strengths of our religious community that we do not require members and congregations to agree with everything. Whether you take on Article 2 or not, the UUA will support you." Well, let's move on to equity. And we're going to read it together. Equity, we declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Now, this is an echo of the first principle. This is one of the places where something got cut up and repurposed in a new pair of jeans. But, I'm sorry, the, one of the things this also does, and I love this, it answers a question that has been sincerely asked in Unitarian Universalist congregations for decades. And that is, if we have to include absolutely everybody, would that include a Hitler? We would now say that a Hitler has chosen to not exercise the right that we think that person has. And especially a bit further down in Article 2, where there's an inclusion clause. Bob read you the earlier one. But the new inclusion clause, instead of saying we welcome everybody, it says we truly welcome all persons who share our values. Okay? So somebody could come in here and they can attend the services here, but if they don't share our values, we would say, no, you can't be a member. Now, the slide, as we saw, it seems to be talking mainly about how we build UU communities as opposed to the whole global reach that the first principle had. I kind of like the global reach, but I will say that for UUFNN as a congregation, we have done a pretty good job of being inclusive in our buildings. One of the things when we were building this building more than 20 years ago was making sure it was all accessible, for instance. And we are working as a community to be inclusive. It's ongoing work for us. Well, now, if you recall, or if you looked at your order of service, it says all about love. Those are the values, all about the value love. The musical. So it's time to sing. Please rise in body or spirit and sing number 1053 in the Teal book. How could anyone ever tell you? It's a short song. We'll sing it twice and the words will be up here. Our next value is pluralism. With this value, we have a strong echo of the fourth principle being the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So let's read this together. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And now we'll sing about it. Please rise in body or spirit. Sing number 113, Where is Our Holy Church? The next one we will talk about is interdependence. Here we have an expansion of our seventh principle, the interdependent web of all living things. And there's an interesting addition of personal relationships. Please read with me. Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life, and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relations and respect mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. And now the chorus here can take a break while the choir sings, We Celebrate the Web of Life.
Celebrate the web of life.
Let's start by reading the next value. This one is really an addition to the values of the principles. It's generosity. Let's read together. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Now, something we do here at UUFNN each month is to share half of our plate collection with a local nonprofit. And this month, we are sharing with Project 150 Reno, and Carrie McDonald is here to tell us about the work they do.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here today. As Gaia said, my name is Carrie McDonald. I'm the principal of Washoe Inspire, which is the school district's alternative high school. We have 100% of our students are at risk. I'm the longest volunteer for Project 150 Reno as well. 75% of my students have benefit every year, at least 75% from Project 150 Reno and the organization. We help homeless, disadvantaged, and displaced high school students with basic needs. We have been serving 3,500 students a year for the past 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary this year. We are 100% volunteer operated as well. Students can shop with us every 6 months, and they receive 10 tops, 5 bottoms, 7 pairs of socks and underwear, new shoes, 2 hoodies, a coat, toiletries, school supplies, some fun items, and a bag of food. And they can come back at any time to receive more toiletries and food if needed. We are open every Wednesday afternoon and the first Saturday of most months for shopping, but we often make extra appointments for Washoe County School District truancy officers who are trying to get students back in school and for other special situations. So I was told you guys wanted to hear some stories about some specific students, and it's been challenging for me to choose who to talk about. Should it be the child from Fernley, who with special needs, who comes faithfully every 6 months because her mom knows she can trust us to treat her daughter with dignity and kindness, and she will always leave happy and with new clothes that she can put on all by herself? Or maybe it will be one of the children who lost everything in a house fire and have nothing left. These are the times that we'll schedule special appointments for students to come in and do a private shop. How about the child who's been in a residential facility for several months and has no clothes that fit other than what she came home in? She doesn't know what size she wears, and she's never shopped on her own before. What about the student from my school whose mom is a single parent and she's doing the best she can to put food on her plate? But the student has been made fun of for wearing the same pair of jeans to school every day. And now he comes to school looking so proud in his brand new clothes. Maybe you want to hear about my student whose mom sold all of his belongings and put him in foster care, so he needed everything brand new. We also gave him a couple of suitcases so that as he moves around from place to place, he has somewhere to put his belongings. How about my student whose pants are so tight he can't even pull them up, and his only pair of shoes just fell apart? We also learned that this student, a 6-foot-tall middle school student, was sleeping on a crib mattress in an apartment full of other children and his family. We were able to work with another organization called We Got You and get the family an entire apartment of furniture, and every child in that building has a bed now. So you see, when I was asked to share stories about students, it was very difficult for me to choose which ones to share because there are so many, and those are just a few of them. Yesterday, there were 19 students that shopped. And so I'm very proud of our organization. I'm proud of what we do. And I appreciate you guys inviting us and taking the time to learn a little bit more about what we do. Thank you.
So with the thought of generosity and mutual support, we'd now like to take the offering. So will the ushers come forward?
Please stay seated and sing number 128, our offertory hymn, For All That Is Our Life. Number 128, stay seated. Another value is transformation. This value relates to Principle 3 in its encouragement to spiritual growth. And along with community, the hope for transformation is a really big reason that I come here each Sunday. Please read with me. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Okay, let's get ready to be transformed. Please rise in body or spirit and sing number 298, Wake Now My Senses. a great job. And this is our last one, justice. Here, we have the democratic process included in the value. And from those of you who do not know the contribution of Unitarian heritage to the creation of American democracy, that's a service for another day. Let's read together. Justice. We work to be diverse, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. Okay, I don't know, you might be thinking like I was, justice, it's a much bigger value than that, at least in our congregation. So we're going to close with hymn number 1028 in the Teal book, The Fire of Commitment, written by the Reverend Mary Catherine Mourn, who's the president of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which works tirelessly to advance human rights around the world. Please stand in body or spirit and remain standing for the benediction. If you feel comfortable doing so, take your neighbor's hands. We were talking, the worship associates were meeting, going, you know, they started to hold the hands again. So go for it. If you're uncomfortable with that, health reasons, whatever, just take a step back. Otherwise, you're welcome to hold hands. as we are blessed by the benediction. These are the words of Olympia Brown, a Universalist who in 1863 became the first woman to be ordained by any denomination. Stand by this faith. Work for it. Sacrifice for it. There is nothing in the world so important as to be loyal to this faith, which has placed before us its loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, that you are strong enough to work for a great true principle without counting the cost. Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation. Let us go now in peace and unrest. Blessed be.